and everybody who's holding me is screaming at the person to not open the door.
The IRS issued letters recognizing Scientology, and every one of its organizations has fully tax exempt.
The length of time from the planet Coltis to the planet Tigiak, which is the name of this planet, was 9 weeks.
127 years in the Sea Organization.
And they had elected a fellow by the name of Xemu, could be spelled Xemu, to the supreme ruler.
Oh no, Nora. Hello.
Hello. I'm in the gay garage.
I'm in the gay attic. I don't know. We got LED strips and ours kind of
That's
linked
right.
up at the top. It's magical. So glad that you have joined me today. I've been wanting to talk to you for ages. How does Nora get involved with a human trafficking cult? Please tell me.
Well, unfortunately for me, I didn't have a choice in that matter. I was born into it in 1976 because I'm from the last century. And both my parents had already gotten in. My mom got in 1970 in San Francisco, and my dad, I believe, like 71 because he was like coming home from Vietnam. And he got in also in the Bay Area of California, but in the Davis missions specifically, because at the time, the mission network was like the biggest thing that was going on. They were actually bigger than the orgs, like bringing in people and delivering services and stuff. Later, it was like two scandalous things my parents were involved with. The Guardian's office, which my mom was in, my dad was not, and the mission network, where there was a mission holder who was like, he was so powerful and had so many missions that he owned that he was like a threat to Scientology as a whole. So they had to like shut down this network of missions. And that's when Scientology Missions International was born, to like put the Sea Org in charge of all of the missions and stuff. Because this one mission holder was like, we're going to do what we want to do. We don't feel like tithing. And they were like, oh, I don't think so.
Is a mission holder like a public Scientologist? Are they anyone in particular? Who is that?
Usually it's a public Scientologist because you can't be a Sea Org member and be a mission holder. So you get like a package to start a mission. Back in the day, I don't think it was as elaborate as it is now. But basically, you have to have a building to deliver the services, and then you pay for the copyrights and the right to use the name Scientology and all this other stuff. But a mission is like
a franchise.
Exactly. It's a franchise because it's a corporation, guys. Shh. OSA. Hi, OSA. It is a corporation. Right. So this is how they franchise it out. And missions can only deliver up to a certain level. They cannot make someone clear. But if you want to go clear, then you got to go up to a higher org, to the class 5 org to get clear. And then if you want to go OT, then you have to go to the advanced org because, it's all multi-level marketing. And then, there's the one place where you can do everything, which is flag, except, of course, OT8, where everybody has to go to where? To the cruise ship, to the free winds, set sail in the Caribbean. They're not even doing that because it's dry docked, because it's decrepit.
Side note, people have asked for a Scientology musical. Would you consider being in it?
That would be amazing. We see, and this is why I love your channel, because it's so fun and so playful and so like, as they would say in Scientology, joking and degrading, but in the best way, because like it's so easy to make fun of Scientology. Like SNL's Nerdology sketch is one of the most iconic, epic takedowns of Scientology that has ever happened. And then as soon as Chloe Feynman, she's a Scientologist, as soon as she joined the cast, all of a sudden they're never talking about Scientology anymore. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
Very interesting. All of a sudden, we don't talk about Bruno.
I don't know how you feel about this, but the sort of doctrine of Scientology, I think, turns people into narcissists. I think it finds those elements of narcissism and amplifies them and gives people magical thinking, makes them think they can control stuff with their mind. What do you think about all of that stuff?
Oh, 100%. My dad was completely convinced by Scientology that he was now superhuman, like 100p. He came back from Vietnam. He was always a bit of a little bit of a, rascal. My dad, as a kid, he was like, his father passed when he was 8 of a violent, massive cardiac arrest. And then his mother remarried 2 weeks later to a man who already had 2 kids. So suddenly his house went from 4 kids and just his mom, losing his father, to this man who was a complete other religion, super strict, like with the belt and the stick, strict, and moved them to another religion. Like, my grandpa was an illegal alien from Greece. And so all the kids got baptized in the Greek Orthodox Church. And then when my grandmother remarried, she went back to her church that she had been born into, which was Seventh-day Adventism, which is like a cult all in itself. It's a whole other jam. But my grandpa was, like a deacon kind of a person, like somebody, a true believer. So he enrolled all of the kids into the Seventh-day Adventist school, which was like super, like it was a private school, good education, but very strict, to the point where, and this is like the 50s, guys, okay, just like as a trigger warning and like understanding what was going on. But in the 50s and 60s, corporal punishment was legal everywhere. A random stranger could pick your kid out of the grocery line if they were talking back to you and spank them and then hand them back to you. And there was nothing wrong with that. Like, that was considered normal. So my dad would get like paddled at school all the time as punishment. At one point, his 8th grade teacher put him in a dog kennel in the front of class for like the whole year. So my dad had a lot of early childhood trauma. And then he bought a brand new Mustang, and his brother had been drafted. Now, in Vietnam, they changed the draft rules. Like, you can't take all the boys. So there's only 2 boys in my dad's family. And his older brother got drafted. And then he, with this brand new cherry 66 Mustang, got drunk at 18 and crashed it. And the judge was like, you have 2 choices. You can go to jail or you can go to Vietnam. And so he was like, I guess I'm going to Vietnam. So my uncle went to Germany. And then my dad went to Vietnam as a medic. His first day in Vietnam, he was jumping off of helicopters to pick up people's body parts that had been, ripped apart and stuff by bombs. Like, this was his job. And so again, lots of trauma there, lots of PTSD. Then he comes home. His bestie from school is like, bro, I just found this new thing. It's rad sauce. And so they get into Scientology together. His bestie is married to my uncle's wife's sister. She's like, not today, Satan. And she pulls him out of Scientology, this man, Denny. And then, so he goes back to the church, but my dad is like, this is my jam. He gets trained as an auditor. He's very good looking. He's very charming. And then, everywhere he walked into, all the ladies, the panties were just flying at him. And like, and then he met my mom. First she was like, ew, he's too cute. Like, she was not interested. And then, obviously one day she became interested, and they got married. And by the time they got married and my mom had me, my mom was in the guardian's office and my dad was still auditing. He had left staff and he had started house painting and stuff like that because he was really good, very talented house painter. And so then Operation Snow White happens. And at one point, my dad got declared in Scientology, as you know, a kakan. They don't issue that anymore, but that is the highest ethics protection you can have in Scientology. It literally says in the policy, you can be forgiven death 3 times. Okay. You could murder 3 people and nothing's going to happen to you. Once he got that kakan status and he was in Operation Snow White and stole the documents and stuff and got away with it, it was proving to him like, yeah, Scientology works. Look at me. No one can touch me. And he got like more and more obsessed with like becoming super rich, super powerful, using Scientology. And then when I was 7, he got in a horrific car wreck, single car accident. He got blackout drunk, crashed his brand new truck into the center divide, stitches like all over the left side of his body, like broke his back, just like a whole thing. He almost died. And after that, now I know that was like a traumatic brain injury. So you have the traumatic brain injury, PTSD, childhood trauma, and then the cherry on top, let's throw in the culty dynamics of like superhuman bullshit. And his goal was to get OT so that he could be like cause over matter, energy, space, and time. The only thing I could think of through my whole life was to be like him and to like do these things that I considered great. And a lot of that was Scientology. But he was thoroughly convinced that he was magic. I mean, he told me and my sister, when I die, I'm totally going to come see you guys. My dad's ghost came to see me when I was 8 and he wasn't even OT. So imagine I'm just going to like come hang out with you guys. And the day that he passed, because he passed the same way his dad did at 45 of a massive coronary, my sister and I sat up till like 3 a.m. fucking waiting for his dumbass. And he never showed. To this day, I've never had like the Princess Leia hologram moment with my dad. As I've gone through therapy, I've become aware of my own anger and other things, you know, resentment and stuff built up about that. You know, in Scientology, it's just like you have to accept all these weird things, like people coming up to you, oh, I was in session and I was exterior to the universe and I saw your father and he just wants you to know that like he's so proud of you. You know, like who says that?
Yeah. I mean, Scientologists don't believe in God as such, do they? But they believe that they are, in fact, godlike. Or that's the goal, isn't it? To become godlike. That's kind of what cause over life means, isn't it? Like you this is your playground and you will do, well, what's the Aleister Crowley thing? Do what thou will should be the law. Or
so much of Scientology is just leftover Aleister Crowley stuff. I mean, like I worked with Jamie DeWolf on his show that never aired. He was telling me some of the stuff that he found from like his grandpa, LRH Jr. Basically, at one point, L. Ron confessed to Jr. that the whole of Scientology, now, of course, this is like the 60s and stuff, but that the whole of Scientology was one gigantic black magic spell to keep the portal open for the beast to come through. Every single process and getting people to continually do those process and repeat these things and do all this stuff was all getting a group of people to cast simultaneously a black magic spell to open a portal in the universe for the beast. Hey girl! Satan to come through. And then, of course, later, when he developed OT8, he, of course, revealed to the world that, you know, I am Lucifer.
But you can call me Lucy with an I. All my friends do.
I'm Lucifer. And Lucifer was the good guy. Lucifer means bringer of light. So, and Jesus was kind of like this bad guy. He was kind of a dick. And, you know,
yeah, he was a
Jesus.
a PDF file. Yes.
Yeah, he was a pedo. Like, what? I mean, that's why when it got released, and you know this, I'm sure you know this story, that when it was first released on the ship's in the middle of the Caribbean. There's like no islands. It's just in the middle of the ocean. They have the big announcement from David Miscavige. All these OT7s are stoked. They're like, oh, I'm going to finally become cause. And people tried to jump off the ship. They were so upset about this revelation that they were literally like, that's it. My life is over. Because these are people who grew up Christian, who were then told Jesus was a myth. It was an implant from the implant station. You know, it's all a lie. And so they had to like throw away their whole life. And then, oh, just kidding. Jesus was real. He was a real dude. And he was bad. Like, what?
I don't know what it's developed into now, but the last thing I sort of read on it that someone had reported was said that it basically now OT8 says that you leave, you finish OT8 the same way you came before you ever stepped into a Scientology building. Like all of these things you thought, these past lives, they weren't real. These things were not real. That's what I read. I don't know if that's what it is now.
So is that why they're getting everybody to just redo everything? Like now they're like, guess what? Now you got to go back to the beginning. It's time to start over. Because you're brand new again.
Who knows? We glossed over very quickly Operation Snow White.
Oh, yes.
You know, the biggest infiltration of government in US history. And your dad was involved with this. Now, what exactly did he do?
Well, again, he was super good looking and charming. So he got a job in the Sacramento, like, governmental office, right? In the mailroom. After doing this job for a number of weeks, he was told, you know, it's go time. And so one day after work, instead of leaving the building, he hid in the women's bathroom because there was like a window from the women's bathroom that went to the outside. And he waited until, you know, it was like lights out and security had left and everything. And then he opened the window and the other people came in through that entrance and they all went through the files and took the shit and then escaped from there. And then he just never went back to work there.
That is insane. That is absolutely, it's like a movie. You couldn't write that, could you? Like, it's
No, but see, like, how dumb is security at this government building where it's like, oh, well, we're just the ladies' room. It's fine.
people always ask me questions like, how is it that they haven't got their tax exemption removed? How is it? Do you think there is any possibility that Scientology actually has some smoking gun documents that the government would not want released to the public?
I don't think it's that. I think they just used exactly what Marty Rathman said when he was talking about it, is that they ran a terror, like literally a terrorist campaign against the IRS, where they were targeting every individual that they could find info on and just straight up blackmail. Like so close to the line of blackmail where they couldn't be sued, but it was just like the same thing that they do to exes, where they try to say like ridiculous things about you and plaster your neighborhood and do all this stuff. They were doing to individual members of the IRS and to officials in there. And basically, you know, the head of the IRS was like, what do we have to do to make this stop? When you live in fear like that and you are worried about what everybody around you thinks about you, even though the things aren't true, you and I know that like if public opinion makes a decision about something, it spreads. And that's just how it's always worked. So these guys were experiencing like a terror campaign in their own neighborhood, directly in their lives. And so basically they're like, how do we make it stop? And Scientology was like, well, I think you know what we want. We want that exemption. And they were like, okay, but if we give you the exemption, is it actually going to stop? Or are you going to keep going with this? And they're like, no, well, yeah, let's see. And then they've never gone back. But I think that it's like once you've been terrorized to that extent, you're not going to repeat it again. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that is terrorism, is it not?
yeah. And they've since that point, since 1993, when they got the tax exemption, you have to then look at what they did after that. As soon as the war was over, as little tiny Davy Wavy said.
Because on October the 1st, 1993, at 8:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the IRS issued letters recognizing Scientology and every one of its organizations as fully tax exempt. The war is over!
They have then spent the last 31 years, greasing the palm of every single government official from city council on up, as high as they can go, paying for lobbyists and paying off every police force in their area, just safe pointing 101 for 31 years. And so here we are protesting, trying to break down these barriers that have been built up over 31 years, you know? And so it's not a small task. I think that's why people are like, I don't understand. Like Nexium got, thrown away. It's like, well, first of all, they never had tax exempt status.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like a religion, but it was like so fringy because they never got that tax exempt, 501c3 status, that it was easier to just be like, you're out. You guys,
they do it in the way of overtime and things like that with the police, don't they? So it's not illegal what they're doing. It's wrong morally, but it isn't illegal, which is, we've seen it, how many problems that's caused for the protesters out in LA, out all over. You attended the protests in LA with Liz Gale, Liz Ferry. When was that? It was a couple of months ago now, hey?
That was in February.
By all means, LAPD leadership, see the length of this receipt. We got one that goes all around this building and then fucking stop. Just an FYI.
What was that like for you, being there with all those other sort of second gens and with that big, massive list? Like, what was it like for you going to that?
It was a lot. I was overwhelmed. I had an incident early in the day where I kind of like almost had to leave because I got real sassy.
You, sassy.
What?
I'm inside a very comfy room. Why is that? Well, I made a whoops-a-doodle. And so I'm going to stay here for a little bit.
Me and the Liz's were in a car together, Liz Gale and Liz Ferris, and we'd gone to get coffee for everybody. And then I was like, hey, it's on the way back. Let's just drive by Big Blue. Like it was in between where we got coffee and where we were going back to our Airbnb. And so we're driving by and it said food drive. Now, in the past couple of weeks, they had been hosting that actual company that was like a charity giving away food. And I was like, I wonder if it's them again. We should tell them like, hey, it's a cult, get out of here, right? Like this will be good footage. So Liz Ferris started like live streaming and we go in and it was volunteer ministers giving away food. And I was like, oh my God, they're just like copying the food drive now. Like this is ridiculous. So we pull in and like the security guard is like looking at us and I was like, is this where the food drive is? And the guy's like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just drive around. And then this woman comes up and I'm like, so what's going on here? Are we donating food? Are you guys giving food away? Or like, how's this work? Now, my rental car, mind you, is like an Audi A6, right? It's clearly like not like some jalopy car. Cause I was like, hey, I'm going to get a fancy rental car. I don't care. You know, like
Jalopy? You're going to have to explain what that is. You're going to have to word clear me on that.
the Audi.
Jalopy.
Oh, a jalopy. That's like an Americanism for a total POS car.
Oh, okay.
A jalopy. Yeah.
Fine. I was like, we don't have that car here. We have like, you know, BMW. We've got like a Prius.
Oh, right. You're like, I've never heard of jalopy. Who makes that? Don't buy one. Don't buy a jalopy.
No.
Don't do that. So, and this woman approaches me, and when her voice starts, I realize that it's my stepmother, who I have not seen since my father passed in 1995. And I was like, at that moment, I looked at her and she's telling me about the thing. And I was like, oh, hi, Kay. And then she goes like pale and like literally stumbles back from the car. And like the other people are shocked. Like, what is happening? I was like, how come you don't talk to me anymore? I haven't seen you in forever. And then she was just like literally stroking out. And then the security guard, Jason, came over. And he's like, you need to go. And I was like, okay, I'm going. And then I was being extra sassy because now I'm talking to Jason and I had my head out the window like this. And then I hear both Liz's going, whoa, 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 whoa. And I was going like maybe 3 miles per hour. And the front end of the car, like, you know, kissed the box bushes that are there. And then he's laughing and I was like, oh, I hit a bush. And I missed so many lesbian jokes. I'm really ashamed of myself for that, you know. And then I backed out and we left. And then I started like in this whole shame spiral of like, now I'm going to be arrested. All these things are going to happen. And then I call my wife and she's like, babe, it's a bush. It's a bush. It's not.
And it's not the first one you've hit.
Right. Yeah. I know. Should have been like, oh, I'm a lesbian. The bush just pulled me in. Like, you know, like there's so many jokes that I missed. So many jokes. I was having a freak out. I ended up calling the org and talking to security and like being like, hey, listen, if you need my insurance data, like I'll come down, give it to you. You know, I just want to make sure if they're, you know, like I wasn't trying to leave the scene of an accident, but you know, the security guard was like telling me that I got to leave. So I just wanted to respect that. And I left, you know, and they were like, no, just consider it handled. And I was like, okay, well, you said it. And so then I almost left LA, but then I was like, no, I'm not going to leave LA. And we went to La Pupu. That was kind of interesting to be there because I engaged in a lot of conversation with just people leaving the comedy club. There was like 3 comedy shows that went on that night. And so they were seeing all these people and they're like, what is going on? You know? And so I was like telling them what we were doing. They're like, oh my God, well, thank you for telling me about La Poubelle. Like I will never go there again. And that felt like really like empowering. And then we walked around CC with the list.
All are gonna see all of it. So these are all kids that grew up in Scientology, you guys.
Wait, what is this?
These are all kids that grew up in Scientology. All of these kids grew up in Scientology, brought to work in hotels, abused in indefensible, unthinkable ways.
I can't step over this.
All of these kids were scammed. All of these kids were told and sold a lie. All of these kids were abused by their parents, by Scientology executives, including but not limited to. All of these kids have been brought into an environment where they could not literally consent.
Holding that list of names with my name on it and your name on it and like so many names on there, just people who couldn't be there. And then of course, my many friends who are passed, was so powerful because I know when we stopped in the front by the bus stop and we were like all addressing the crowd, there's a security camera that's pointed right there that I knew was watching us. And at one point there was a security guard standing like watching us. And I saw him when I started talking. And then as soon as I pointed at him, he like left. So I know people heard our message inside the building of hope, of like redemption, of freedom. That let me know like I need to keep doing this. I was having a lot of mental health issues at the time. I'll be honest. Like I was getting attacked a lot by my own personal troll who just loves me so much. Who you've done great musical parodies of.
I have not seen anybody get quite so viciously. I mean, it's not trolling at this point, Nora. It's cyberbullying, which is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's very disturbing, to say the least, to see that. I think you are very strong and an amazing person. You know, you didn't leave the internet, run off, any of that, because you don't take any. I think that's amazing. Let's talk about it. You know, how did you deal with that?
Not very well, to be honest. Like behind the scenes, you know, on the internet, like we talked about before we came on here, you know, our dear friend Natalie is dealing with the tremendous loss of the love of her life right now. And I was saying that I'm commending her on being so raw and vulnerable and just like real, because one thing that we were kind of bred to do was just to have this no emotion, because any human emotion is, of course, human emotion and reaction, and it's bad. That is a bad word.
Ew.
Ew, H-E-N-R, ew, right? And so you cannot, any emotion that is real in the moment, that isn't just you like confronting, this weird idea of confronting, meaning having no reaction, just being able to take whatever comes at you, good, bad, indifferent, terrible, terrifying. You're just supposed to sit there with no reaction.
Well, you do it for hours. You do it for hours and hours and hours and hours, sitting there taking it
and dishing it out.
Yeah, and the bullying part of it, you know, when you've got people giving you the equivalent of an online bull bait,
Yeah.
you know, it's must be so triggering for one, but also, yeah, how do you react to that? Because your instinct is to not, right?
My instinct was a lot of things. My instinct was to, you know, I would talk to various people and they'd be like, ignore it. He means nothing. He has no followers. Nobody's watching his content. And I would be like, okay, you're right. Like analytically, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense because I'm looking at the numbers on YouTube. Clearly, it's not hundreds of thousands of views, but I couldn't get these words and the images out of my mind. I took it so very personally. And especially when it escalated to talking about my kids, my wife, my place of work, I felt in the same way that those IRS agents felt, like I was in constant danger. I started becoming extremely paranoid. I thought all my neighbors were watching me. I thought they were secretly filming me. Anybody who came to talk to me that I didn't know was like, that person's clearly being sent here by OSA. If somebody left their lights on in the neighborhood while I was walking the dogs, I'm like, that person's a PI. Like I was just in a complete panic. And I went so deep on this spiral that I went back, honestly, to my darkest time, like when I left the RPF. But this time, what was different, where I got to the point of like thinking like life isn't worth it, where I have my beautiful, brilliant wife who's like got me through everything. And I realized I can reach out for mental health help. Like, it is so hard for us as ex-Scientologists to say, I need help. Please help me. Because that is like so low. But when I got to that point, I told my wife, I was like, I think I need to call the crisis hotline. And I did. And I had this beautiful woman. Of course, it wasn't a FaceTime. I don't know. I'm just saying she's beautiful because of how she helped me in that moment. But she talked me through so much stuff and was like, okay, like just so much reassurance in a way where there was no session, no process in Scientology where I ever felt like that, where I ever felt like, okay, there's hope, like this is going to get better. It just always felt like I had to change and become this thing that like Scientology expects you to be, and then I'm okay. Once I'm this thing in this box, then I'm the right thing. And so I started on what's called intensive outpatient therapy, where you're in therapy like 4 days a week for like 12 and a half hours, which I found ironic that it was like the same amount of time as an intensive.
Was it the same amount of money though?
No. Well, I have good insurance, but actually it's more than that. Was it 12 and a half hours? I'm thinking, no, actually it was 16 and a half hours. So it's like a little bit more, but, and you have like 1 day off a week. And then in that 1 day off I had a week, I was seeing my individual therapist, and I also had another group therapy that I was in. So I was doing like therapy 5 days a week, just like boom, to boom, to boom. And I slowly started being able to acknowledge the things that have been inside of me for decades. Right. And it was like the first time that I took like a pause from everything to just focus on myself, which is so weird. So first dynamic, such a sin in Scientology. But because of that, I am so much more whole now. Like it really is night and day, because you get told over and over and over that if you go see a psychiatrist, if you go see a therapist, you're going to be lobotomized instantly. That's all they want to do. They just want to like stick a pick in your eyeball and swirl it around and scramble your brain like scrambled eggs. And then you're a zombie for the rest of your life. That's the result if you go see a psychiatrist. My psychiatrist is hilarious. He like wears like floral Tommy Bahama shirts, and like we meet virtually. So he has like this like Hawaii background, and he's like very like quirky and punny. He just says a lot of puns. Like, and I'm just like, I could hang with this guy. Like, he's hilarious. But it's like, okay, what do you need? Let's talk about it. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, oh, I get to talk about what I need? What? Like, it's just like you get to be for the first time like, oh, well, this, that, and the other thing, and talk about it. And nothing you say is judged. Nothing you say is like, oh, that's the wrong answer. That's not what's reading on the meter here. So you're going to have to come up with something else. You're like, well, shit, that's what came to my mind, So you feel really validated for the first time, because what you say is true. What you feel is true. You don't have to get that double validation on this stupid machine that does nothing except for twist your thoughts and guide the person behind the meter into turning you into like a total freak. I stopped looking at his content. That was the other thing I did. My wife was giving me like a sticker chart for every day I wasn't looking at his content. And then after not doing that for several weeks, I realized like, I don't even care anymore. I looked at his content recently, which just made me so sad to see what he's, because some of the stuff he did was creative. I'll give him, he's definitely somebody who has some talent that is being misused. It's the same way I feel about hackers. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could be doing so much stuff to help the world, yet you're just stealing people's credit card information. Mm-hmm. Like, that just seems really a waste of your time. He's not stupid. I think he's misguided, supremely angry, somebody who cannot let anything go. And so when I looked at that and saw like how this tiny, tiny person, physically and mentally, was affecting me, I just thought like, I went from anger, rage, to just like a real place of like pity for him. Like, I'm sad for you that you're in your 60s, you have no life, You have no love in your life. You just keep fucking people over. And then all you do all day is sit and yell about people you've never met. That's a sad existence. And then I was able to like let him go from my mind because he was living in there like rent free. And that was a huge accomplishment for me to be able to be like, I can let this like internal demon go, because I think we have so many of those from Scientology just running around in there that tell us weird things all the time. But he was like a real life version.
You left Scientology via the RPF, right? Which
Yeah.
really Rehabilitation Project Force, which is punishment, right? And what did you get? What was your big crime that got you sent there?
I kissed a girl.
Did you like it?
I did. Not even with tongue, y'all. I was in a torrid lesbian affair for about 1.5 years with my roommate. We did kiss many times. It wasn't like just one kiss sent me, but never with tongue, never like naked, never touching, no sex, just those kisses. And the first thing they did, they tried to declare me. They sent up a huge declare package to the International Justice Team for being gay, for, like all the stuff, like basically how I had been the single most destructive person in the tech department in the history of mankind. And I did all these things. First of all, guys, when they took me off of my post and put me on physical work at Celebrity Center before all, going to the RPF, I was in a state of power in my statistics, okay, which is very hard to achieve. That means that your statistics were here at normal, you went into an affluence, and then you went into a new normal at this new high range. I had been in a state of power for months, and as was my department. We were doing really well. I was the highest grossing word clearer on the planet Earth.
Does that mean you cleared the most words? What does that mean?
Yeah, basically, I had like the best statistic on the planet. I mean, I had gotten shout outs from David, from Guillaume, from all the people. When I got found out, because I confessed, not because they found out during the truth rundown or all these other things they were trying to give me, that was like the ultimate betrayal, that I had not been found out with technology. Like literally while I was carrying on this torrid affair that was so out ethics, I finished my word clear course and internship, supervisor course and internship, several other, like 5 different other little auditor course, like clay table auditor, all these other things. And I did Keto Life and LOC and the pro metering and, and then I was on the truth rundown and none of this ever came up. So they were like, clearly she's suppressive. If somehow this huge overt was like walled off in this other cavern of her mind, then she must be completely psychotic, right? And so they put me on all this physical work. They tried to declare me, and then nothing was happening for months. I wrote to the RTC rep for Celebrity Center and to
Who was that?
It might have been Claire, or it might have been somebody else. It might have been Claire though at the time. I don't remember. Or it was Elsie Tucker.
And the RTC reps. So there's David Miscavige, and then the RTC reps are the next level.
Basically, yeah. There's like it's like his personal team representing RTC, and they went out to every org, essentially like Sea Org on the planet, to make sure that Scientology was being applied correctly, perfectly in that zone or area.
So they're not like a HR for you guys or anything. They're not there to look out for you. What is your relationship to an RTC rep as a Sea Org member? Fear.
Fear. You don't want to have a convo with them. You don't want them to put you on the meter. You don't want them to be engaged with you. You want them to not know you. You want them to just be like, oh, you're doing a good job. Carry on. You're like, yes. Like it is like Darth Vader just having a presence at your work to make sure that you're there on time. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You don't have bad thoughts. Just like you're supposed to look at them as a extension of David Miscavige, like as if David Miscavige is watching you.
Wow.
Yeah. It's terrifying. They're terrifying. They're absolutely terrifying. Yeah. It's not help. It's not help from them, but it had been so long. I basically was like, listen, I know you didn't declare me, but I'm sitting here for months. So either route me out. I've already had hundreds of hours of SEC checking, like I'm over it, or send me to the RPF, like one or the other, because I'm not going to keep doing this. Like either that or I'm just leaving. I'm going because I'm done. And so during the birthday event in March of 2000, they finally were like, okay, we're sending Nora to the RPF. Normally, when you see an RPF assignment, like the issue that they do, the big ethics issue, it's on goldenrod. And they say all of your crimes, all the ways you failed, all the things that you did that were collapsing the org and all this other bullshit. Mine was one sentence. Nora has gone out to D with another Sea Org member. That was it.
And you're a consenting adult and you've kissed someone consensually who also wanted, did they get RPF'd as well? Like,
yeah, but they got sent like a couple weeks after me. So I didn't know because we were under separation order. So she was also doing like the same type of physical work at Celebrity Center, but we weren't allowed to talk. We weren't allowed to be in the same room together. We weren't allowed to communicate in any way, shape, or form. And that was like my biggest regret, is that I didn't at that time have the chance to, talk to her about what had happened. Like even when I confessed, I didn't tell her I was doing it. And I still, I apologized to her later for that because I felt really bad. And, I went through a lot of emotions on the RPF, like, oh, I should have just gone to her and run away. And,
is this your coming out story?
Yeah. Oh, well, kind of, because then on the RPF, I worked really hard to not think about women in any way, shape, or form, because it was like verboten. They asked me flat out, like the first question they asked me, like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, do I want to lead the pride parade? Am I trying? I was like, no, I mean, obviously I want to fix myself, right? Because that's the first impulse you have, is you have to fix yourself. And then I started finding all this contradictory stuff in the tech they were telling me to listen to and read, right? Like, in the freedom lectures from, it's like a lecture he gave over the Freedom Congress, right? It's a lecture he gave in Washington, D.C.
Somewhere around there, antisocial. You have to get somebody up the line up here. At least get him sexually inhibited. Freud undoubtedly improved the whole society. You have to get enough of him there so he can make nothing out of it before he can find himself.
During like the 4th of July, like in 1956. In one of those lectures, he says very clearly, like basically about like, this is him breaking down gender, right? And he's like, one day you're a knight and you're walking around and then you get run through with the sword and you wake up and you're a lady. Like, what are you supposed to do? Learn to knit? And like he's making a joke about it, that you don't, it's like luck of the draw, what body you get, but you can be like a male phaeton, as if that exists, trapped in a female body. And then that's where like that at his time was like, because being gay was still it was illegal in the United States in the 50s. So that was like his way of like explaining homosexuality, like you're just in the wrong body. And so you do have to supplant those impulses into your correct body. Full disclosure, I don't feel like a male in a female's body. I'm a woman. I'm attracted to women. That's how that goes for me. But that did twist my mind a lot. And I was thinking, well, what if that's me? I'm just a dude in a lady body, and now I have to figure out how to be a lady. And so then you go through all this other mindfuck stuff. And then I was on the RPF for almost 3 years, where it was all reprogramming. Anytime I showed affection in just a normal human way, like you and I have laughed, we've smiled at each other several times throughout this conversation. That's normal. There would have been like 40 KRs written on me already. I'm trying to seduce you. Apparently they thought I was like the most powerful lesbian on the planet. that every woman was just, their panties were going to fly off, and I was converting everybody left, right. You're a lesbian. You're a lesbian. You're a lesbian. Also, when you go on the RPF at PAC in the big blue buildings, right? Like I went from Celebrity Center where we had a dorm. Maybe there was like, it's still a lot of people in the dorm, like 8 people, but you had an ensuite bathroom that was like your own private bathroom. You could shut the door, lock it, be like, hey, I'm pooping. You can't come in here. Like, give me a minute. Then you go to PAC. Now, the RPF uses the same shower facility that everybody else does. So you have to go to one of 2 locations, either on the 7th floor of the big blue building there, or on the 3rd floor of Lebanon Hall, 3rd or 4th floor of Lebanon Hall. But they have multi-shower rooms. On the 7th floor, it's like, I think there's 6 or 7 showers in this room. So you have to picture me, baby lesbian me, who's just like been shamed for 3 months straight about how you can't be gay and da da da. And so I'm really like, okay, I'm going to do this RPF and I'm going to become ungay. I've just done my first day of hard work on the RPF, and we're run up 7 flights of stairs to go take your shower. I walk into this room. It's like a scene from a 1980s, quasi porn. There's just steam everywhere. About 50 women in various states of undress, some nude, coming in and out of these showers. And I was like, I have never been in a room, not even when I was in high school. Like we would all change by our locker, like, okay, don't look, and now there's just like, and it was a lot of European women on the thing, and they're very confident with their bodies. They don't give 2 shits if, their titties are out and they're talking to you. They're just like, so, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, because I grew up in America, we don't just, throw our boobs in someone's face, And so I said to the RPFSC, I was like, I don't think this is changing my mind. Like, this is probably bad. And I got a reaming. Like, you better get your shit together. Like, bro, that's out ethics. Like, bro, you're putting me in a room with naked women. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I never even saw it. Now I'm like, very curious. Like, nothing I did was right on the RPF, though. I grew my hair out. That wasn't good enough. They wanted me to wear makeup on the RPF. Like, I was like, no. At one point, I was like, I'm just going to shave my head. I'm going to do a Britney and just shave my head and call it a day, because I'm going to become a Buddhist monk, because nothing I'm doing is right. And then it got to the point where I was in the laundry unit because I had hurt my back really bad. So I couldn't do a lot of stuff. And I was tossing like little bags of laundry down the stairs to this girl, and because we were both in the laundry unit. And I started on the RPF. There's no form of entertainment. There's no radio. There's no music. There's no nothing. So we would often like perform for each other movies or things that we could remember. It was like ancient storytelling time. And so I was doing Austin Powers or something ridiculous, and she started laughing, right? And the RPFIC, Alex Myers, saw this interaction and decided that I was flirting with her, or that something was going on between us. Like that this was proof that I was stripping this girl. So somebody comes and they grab me and they're like, you need to come down and, you need to go for an interview. And I was like, what the okay. So I sit down, and this girl who I loathe is now interviewing me. Like, I just hated her. And she immediately is like, I'm not auditing you. Are you having sex with, and I was like, what? I just started laughing. I was like, is this a joke? Is this like, am I being punked? Where is Ashton? Like, this is crazy. And then she's like, no. And she's like, just repeating the question, varying it, and then saying like just disgusting sex things that I didn't even know what they were. I was like, is that a thing? Like,
how old are you when this is happening?
When I was there, well, let's see, this was 2002. Oh, God. See, Kelly, now you want me to do math? No one said there was going to be math in this interview. But I'm 26. You have to understand, that's old. That's not young. But
wait,
I was a virgin. Well, it's young now. I mean, Jesus, it's 22 years younger than I am now. But, yeah, God, shit, that was 22 years ago. Holy shit. God, I'm old. I'm like 2 adults put together, and now I'm like an old adult. Jesus.
You know what, though? You don't look old.
Thank you. Well, I'm 48.
Wow.
So.
You know what? Yeah, fair play to you.
Thank you.
You're killing it. You got a baby face.
But yeah, I was 26. I was a virgin. I got so much bull baiting and like cramming on sex stuff because like when I was auditing my twin, she had been married. So there was all these crimes she had committed while being married, you know, where I had to get gory details about her sex life. And I would just turn bright red when we would talk about it. And not even knowing, just I would just get embarrassed about it. So I'm being interrogated. And I finally was like, listen, I don't know what this is, but this is not Scientology and I'm not doing it. And I put the cans down and then the switch flipped. The supervisor comes over and they're like, pick up the cans. And I was like, no, this is ridiculous. I'm going to go talk to the RPFIC because clearly this is some BS. And I start trying to like grab my shoes because you have to take your shoes off. You got to unbutton your pants, like this whole thing to get comfortable for the session. And they snatch my shoes up and my socks. And now we're in a fight. Now I'm like, I want my shoes back and I'm leaving here. I'm not doing this anymore. And we're going back and forth. So then I'm like, okay, fine, fuck it. Keep my shoes. I don't care. And I stand up and she like tries to push me down in the chair. And I stood up again and I was like, I'm going to say this once nicely because there was like a session going on in the corner that I was trying not to disturb. And of course, now I'm super interesting. The PC's like watching me like a television show instead of like being in the middle of course, a NED session, which is New Era Dianetics, which is a super high crime to interrupt a session of that nature.
Of course.
Okay. So just to paint the picture for you of what's going on. So then the supervisor's like, you're disturbing the other session. I was like, no, you're disturbing the other session because you're yelling at me. I'm not yelling and I want to leave here. So then now I have two people trying to push me back in a chair. So now I'm like, no. So then I like somehow get past them into the area where like the examiner was. Now there's like 3 or 4 people who are all trying to put me back in this room. And we're all getting louder and louder and louder. And people are grabbing me and pulling me. And I'm trying to get to the door. And this door where we were in session, if you're at the big blue building on Catalina, there's like the corner of the building that goes out. It's right there. Like that's where this basement was. There's like a little stairs that goes down and we were in that's where the RPF did their auditing in that basement area there. And I'm trying to open the door and it's locked and I cannot open it. I'm pushing on the little emergency bar thing and it won't open. So now I'm pounding on this door and I'm screaming for help. And I've got all these people like pinning me down, trying to pull me. And I'm like clawing my way back. And then finally somebody hears the pounding and comes to the other side of the door and starts opening it. So I like, because it was opening, however, and I put my hands in the door and I start pulling myself and the door open. And everybody who's holding me is screaming at the person to not open the door because, like they're trying to keep me in. And it's this whole battle. And then I managed to like somehow get outside, like just kick these people. And I'm running. And this is the part where everybody's like, well, you must have run to like the police or something. And no, because I knew I couldn't go to the police. The other nearest help is all the way down Fountain and I believe it's Vermont. There's a fire station, but it was dead of night. It was dark. So I ran up the street to the security office in the Horseshoe. There's a little phone there where you can call. And I pick up the phone. I'm now bleeding out of my nose and face because it got partially broken from being smashed on the ground. My feet are cut and bleeding. And another Alex Duvall, picks up the phone and he's like, stop bleeding all over my phone.
Wow.
That's the first thing he says to me. I'm hysterical. I'm like, like just telling him what happened. And, and then he tries to like calm me down. And then the next thing I know, the RPFIC calls and he's like, come up here right now. So now I have the girl that was supposed to be auditing me and like 3 people standing there, like yelling at me to get off the phone and do this, that, and the other thing. So I go up to the RPFIC's office and we start having it out because we had known each other since we were like 12, me and Alex Meyer. I was actually his first kiss on the roof of CC. So we had like a long-standing relationship. And we start screaming at each other. Like at this point, I did not care anymore about being on the RPA. I didn't give a shit. And the people in there are like, you can't talk to him like that. And then he's like, get out. He kicks everybody out. So he and I literally have this drag out screaming match, just the two of us, where people keep popping their head in because they think I'm losing my shit. And I basically told him, because the day I arrived, I said, listen, because he goes, what's your deal? Are you going to do this program or what? Because it's voluntary. You have to sign a whole huge legal disclosure saying that you're there voluntarily and you can leave anytime you want.
Yeah. Well, we know why that you have to do that, right?
No, they make you sign that, but you can't leave anytime you want. But it does say legally in the document that they get notarized that legally it says you can leave anytime you want. If you decide the RPF is not for you, you're then excused from the Sea Org. Like that's what's supposed to happen. So the first day I arrived, he was like, what's your deal? Are you going to do this program? And I said, I'll do it on one condition, that if I finish it successfully, that no one is going to keep looking at me like I'm a gross lesbian. Like, I want to be me again. And if that's not going to happen, there's no point. He's like, oh, no, nobody knows why you're here. Only me and like one ethics person. And don't worry about it. Everybody knew. And my life for those 3 years was pure hell and torture. And so when he came at me with this thing, I was like, you promised me that that's not how you were looking at me. And then for you to say that I'm doing this because I made somebody laugh, like, fuck you. Like, I told him that to his face. And he's like, okay, well, maybe I made a mistake. I was like, made a mistake? Like, I was like going off, and he's like, okay, well, we're going to get this fixed up, because he realized, like, I'm going to take off. Like, that's it. I'd already blown a couple times anyway. But in this state, like, I'm bloody, I'm messed up. Looks bad for him. He has to get me under control.
Well, had you gone to the police, like, it's false imprisonment and assault.
Right. Knowing that now, I should have, even with the corrupt LAPD, they would have been like, bro, she is busted. She is busted up. Like, what? And so I went in session with this guy, Brooke. He handled it. And then the next day, my senior, Caroline Mustard, got like this close to my face and basically told me that I was the biggest piece of shit she had ever been associated with, and that, like, essentially the whole world would be better off without me. And that if I did one thing wrong, like, that's it. She was going to like destroy me. And I just started bawling, and I was supposed to be going to the laundry room, and instead I just stopped. I was supposed to be under 24-hour watch. Nobody even noticed that I wasn't there. I went up to the second floor lab hall, just like scream bawling. And I went into the utility closet, and I just started I got like soap and water, and I just started like scrubbing the walls. Like, I was in like a complete state of psychosis, completely disassociated, just completely out of it. And people were just coming by to scream at me about different things, like blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, just like so fucked up. And then when I realized that like everything they were saying was right, like there was nothing I could do. I had not been able to make somebody better. That's your whole goal on the RPF. I was not getting better. I had tried to leave the right way. I went before a fitness board. I actually got approved, and the RPFIC hid that from me for 3 months until I was broken again and decided to stay. And so I was like, yeah, they're right. There's nothing left for me on this earth, And I went back into the supply closet, and there was like this old ass pair of scissors. I tried to cut my wrists. That didn't work. And I started like crying and laughing. Like, I can't even kill myself properly. Like, that was the thought in my mind. Like, I can't even do this right. Like, this is how pathetic I am. And then I grew up watching like the Olympics and stuff, and Nadia Comaneci, and I remembered her story. Like, when she got super down, she drank this bleach. And I thought, well, maybe I won't die, but I'm probably going to, and I, the last thing that I said before I drank it was, I'm sorry, Mom. Like, I just said that out loud, and then I drank this bleach. Don't do that to everybody. Please don't. I fell backwards out of the supply closet, like choking, just violently heaving, and then they were like, everyone was like, oh my God, And so then, of course, the solution was to get me milk. They brought a carton of milk, And then they were like, so are you okay now? And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Did they know that you had drank bleach?
Oh, yes. Yes, I showed them. The bleach was like spilling out into the hallway. They knew exactly what I did. And they were like, oh, well, here's some milk to settle your stomach. Because I was like, something's wrong, like it was burning and hurting and like everything. So then Quinn Toffer, who is the MLO, comes. He starts interrogating me, like, what did you think? What are you doing? And I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like anywhere. He's like, okay, stop talking. And then he and the RPFIC had this like heated talk. And basically they're on the like radio with security for the base. And they're like, she's got to get out of here. You got to get her off the base right now. So Quinn throws me in a car.
And that's not for your safety either, is it? It's literally so you don't die there.
No. It's for the base. Yeah, basically. They're like, well, get her the fuck out of here. So he puts me in a car and he takes me to the Chevron station at the corner of Vermont and Los Feliz. And then he gets out of the car and he gets on his cell phone and calls Dr. Megan Shields and tells her what has happened. And I can hear the call because it's like on speaker. And she basically is like, I'm not going to see her. You have to take her to all of you. So Dr. Shields, who is was a doctor, she's dead now, but she was a doctor, and she had been treating me for other things like infections and stuff. She refused to see me. And then they took me to all of you. And on the way to all of you, I have to come up with a shore story. Now, a shore story is basically an elaborate lie that you tell to cover up for whatever's going on. So the shore story that Quinn had me rehearse for the whole 45-minute drive from there to the hospital was that I had been cleaning the walls and using a bleach and water solution in an Arrowhead bottle. And then I had like a bottle of actual water and I confused the two and just took like this little sip of diluted bleach and, whoopsie-doodles kind of a thing. And also he was going to escort me everywhere in the hospital, including during the examination with the doctor as my cousin. So the doctor's like, who is this? I was like, oh, it's my cousin. This is my cousin.
Wow. Why did you lie for them? Like, at that point?
Because I was scared. I mean, I wanted to tell the doctor, hey, I just tried to off myself. I need help. Please help me. But I was scared of psychiatry. I was scared that I was going to be lobotomized and turned into a vegetable. And, all those things like and also we're in an emergency ward. So it's chaotic. There are actually like, homeless kind of quasi crazy people in there that they're like hitting with Dilaudid and like, like subduing with things that I'm thinking, oh God, like I'm going to go to the no room. It's going to be a padded cell. And like, I'm never getting out of there. But, should I have reached out for help? Absolutely.
I mean, even such a low place as well from, from all of these people. Yeah. Maybe that's actually wrong of me to ask why would you lie about that?
No. It's not a bad question. It's like I was so in the cult mindset. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't even at that point, even though I survived, I still wasn't trying to save myself. I was still trying to protect my mom, who was still in, my family members, my friends on the RPF. Like I didn't want them to get in trouble. Like it was all this like weird, like I am irrelevant. These other people need me to protect them at this point because I messed up. I'm bad. Right. And so I got my examination and then he didn't know what to do with me. We're just driving around. We're literally just driving around till they figured out what they were going to do with me. So we went and got Krispy Kreme. I'd never had Krispy Kreme before. That was delicious. And then I went to In-N-Out and I hadn't had In-N-Out in like forever. So I'm having like hella good food. I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. They're trying to calm me down. They're doing like a PAB 6, which in Scientology is a professional auditor's bulletin number 6. And when you have somebody who's psychotic, you're supposed to just like keep them outside and have them eat and sleep and just like, touch grass, essentially. It's the touch grass bulletin for people who are crazy. So that's how they were treating me at that time. So then my twin at the time Kashenka, that's her real name. She was from South Africa. She came, and of course now she's in a huge amount of trouble because I've done this thing. And this other girl, Callie, showed up. They were watching me. So then they checked me into the Extended Stay America in Burbank that's directly across from the airport. It's like a little mini apartment that you can stay in. But it had one bed, guys. What? I'm under 24-hour watch. The RPFIC comes to get Kashenka because now she's in trouble. She's going to go to the RPF's RPF because her twin has, done this horrible crime. And so it's her fault. And I felt really bad about that. Like I tried to apologize to her and she was not having my apology. And they brought Callie's twin, Zarin, who's actually Juliette Lewis's half-sister. So now Zarin and Callie are my watch for the evening. And we sit down and it was Saturday. So Saturday Night Live came on and I started watching it. And then they were like trying to like not look at the television. And they're like, you shouldn't be watching that. I'm like, who fucking cares what I do? And then I realized, oh, I'm going to get them in trouble by watching this. Like, I'm going to get in trouble. Like, what? I'm fucking in a hotel, but I was like, okay, I'll turn it off.
But they would report on themselves, wouldn't they? It's not like there's a camera in there or something. Like all of this.
No, they would report on themselves. We watched Saturday Night Live and we were laughing. We had a good time with this completely psychotic out ethics person, right? And so then I was like, well, I want to go to bed, but I want to shower. And Zarin's like, oh, you can't shower. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't shower? She's like, you have to take a bath. And she took the curtain off of the tub area and she sat on the toilet and watched me bathe because I wanted to shave my legs and stuff. But she had to make sure I didn't try to drown myself. There was no point where I was alone. If I wanted to go pee, the door had to stay open so they could see that I wasn't, throwing my head in the toilet or something, right? So here I am naked in a bathtub, shaving my legs in front of this woman. And I just looked her dead in the eyes and I was like, who's the lesbian now? Because it's not me. I just got really sassy. I didn't give two shits. They sent somebody to audit me, to audit out the evil purpose to kill myself. So I had to do that for a few hours and then, come to an end phenomena realization about my whole track evil purpose to do myself in. They're like, you need to go for a walk. So we start walking around this little complex and there was like all this food and stuff, but also there was a animal shelter. So we went in the animal shelter and there was all these like super adorable puppies. And I was like, oh, I'm going to adopt a puppy. And they were like, shut up. Like they were just like everything. I was like, what the hell do you care? I don't know how long we're here. I'm going to adopt a puppy, like whatever. And then the RPFIC showed up. And at the time, I don't know what happened to these vehicles because they're not there at the Big Blue now, but he showed up in a retrofitted police car that they had that had like packed security on it. And like the lights were still on there. They still had the light bar and the speaker. So he pulls up with the lights going and the siren going. And then he gets on the thing and he's like, Nora, come outside, Nora. And he's like calling my full name. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm in a hotel. What's wrong with you? Like, there's regular people here. What's wrong with you? And he just looks at me and he's like, so are you going to knock off your case on post and like come back and finish the program or what? Like after all of this, he still wants me to come back and finish the fakakta RPF. And there was such a large voice in my head, Kelly. I cannot tell you that moment where part of me was like, oh, you got to finish. You got to make it right. And then I thought, I'm never escaping. Like I'm leaning on his window. He had it rolled down. I'm leaning on it, talking to him, thinking, this is it. Like, this is the moment. And so I pushed myself back and I said, no, Alex, I don't want to be in the Sea Org anymore. And then he took my hands and he threw them off the car and he's like, fine. Fuck you then. And then he just sped off, like almost ran my feet over. And I thought, wow, that's it. And then the next thing that happened, the other Alex, security Alex, showed up to check me out of the hotel. Somebody else came to get Zarin and Callie. And he took me back to pack. Now, where that parking lot is now, where Kelly, the other Kelly, saw the rando guy who was like, "Oh, legal says you can't film me on the street," like that bajumba weirdo. That parking lot used to have just nothing but dirt and like cargo container things that they had like rented. And that's where all my stuff was. Like somebody had just packed up all my stuff and put it in boxes. And also the stuff like when I came to the RPF, they put all your stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, you don't come with a lot, do you? Like, you really don't have many belongings.
I had clothes that I could wear on the RPF and then like a couple books. I had this dictionary Catherine Bell gave me. I had a bicycle, but somebody stole it out of the Wilcox, and all my tennis stuff. They stole my tennis rackets. I was like, really? What are you going to do with tennis rackets? But okay. So they got like 2 boxes of stuff, put that in the back of the security car. He drove me to the HGB. We went up to like the 5th floor to OSA. And I sat in this huge conference room with a camera pointed at my face where they made me sign this whatever.
Who was there? Do you know who it was?
I think Kendrick was there. I don't know if Mike was there or not, but there was like all weird OSA people. Like I just remember a woman being there. Maybe Karen Powell. I don't know. She was very angry. Nobody was happy. They were just all like very mean and intimidating and like put me on camera. They're like, say your full name, and like, and then you have to read aloud each thing that you're signing. And like, one of the things was like, I'll never speak out about Scientology, or I promise to pay $10,000 for every violation. And I was like, I took that seriously. I was like, oh my God, I can't afford that. Like $10,000.
Could you imagine if they released those videos, like all of those videos that have been made? I just don't see how that would stand up.
It's like a hostage video. Who doesn't look like a hostage in that situation? I mean,
I have never been hurt by Scientology. They're great. They're great.
Oh, I love it.
People find it unbelievable, Nora. People don't believe that this is really going on, and hearing that story of you just trying to get the heck out of there is awful. It's horrific. And I'm so sorry that you've gone through that shit. And I am amazed by the person you are today, because you are fucking great.
Thank you. It's taken a lot. I mean, it takes a village, that's for sure. And I will say it, I've said it 100 times. Please, if you have ever gone through anything mental health wise, please reach out to a mental health professional. They are fantastic people that have saved me more than once. And utilize whatever resources that you have, because it, especially for people that are lurking, because we know everybody that a lot of people that watch our stuff are under the radar Scientologists or ex-Scientologists, or even Scientologists that are lurking and just wondering. And I will say that the difference between therapy and Scientology is really can be encapsulated in my end moments in Scientology, because even when I was at the lowest point in my life, the only solution was to come back and do more Scientology after it almost had murdered me. And it's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's really the end result of Scientology, is insanity, is, like you pointed out earlier, narcissism, and just sort of this like really, really warped worldview where you're completely isolated and shut off from everybody, and you create a prison for yourself in your own mind. Like that's what Scientology does, is it makes you imprison yourself in your own mind. And it is, for that reason, in my personal opinion, the singularly most dangerous cult on the planet. Because I don't know of any other cult that's the end phenomena. When people will be protesting, or you mentioned like that people are just like, oh, it's just a quirky, weird group of people, just Scientology, whatever, just let them be. It's all like, bro, do you have Google? Do you have the internet? Like in the 90s and stuff, we could say, yeah, there's no access to all this information. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or any of these things. So the people who were speaking out, they were doing it in real life. And then there was the internet, but you had to pay a lot of money for it. It was very like, just Wild West. It wasn't organized like it is now. And the websites that were up then, even in the early days, in the early 2000s, were so like, oh my gosh, if you go back and somebody has screenshots of like xenu.net and ex-Scientology message board and things like that, like they were just like, like so much, Operation Clambake and things like that, that were just there giving you all the deets about Scientology. And it was so overwhelming. It was just a tidal wave.
Yeah. Now you guys have got us,
Now you guys have got storytellers that we pick apart all these different things. And it's so fantastic that not only are you here, Aaron and the Liz's and like Serge and Laura and people like us that are born in, but like the Never Ends are so phenomenal to just rise up, start a YouTube, go out and protest. Like I am so grateful every single day to every single person who's never been in Scientology, who's like, not on my watch. Not on my watch. Is this going to continue? We're going to push this forward until it's done. And it's like, this has never happened. This has never, ever happened. When I left the Sea Org at 26 in 2002, I'd never been on the internet. I didn't know what it was. I was afraid of it.
Wow. That's amazing.
And now I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, now you're on YouTube and you are absolutely killing it on here. I love your show. It's amazing. Please tell us what do you aim to do on your YouTube channel? Please let us know.
Oh gosh. Well, my one big goal I have, and it is a big goal, is to have more subscribers than Scientology's channel. And they have 88,000 subscribers. So I'm at 15 now. So it's a ways to go, but that's like big, lofty goal. But the most thing that I try to do like on my channel is to do these deep dives into how the technology is shaping what Scientology's actions are in real life, and give people an understanding of like the inner workings of Scientology, peppered with, of course, humor and, just realism, that I think it's important to understand why we're taking down this cult. Like there's so much going on right now with the news stories and the lawsuits and things, but you see in real time why they're so dangerous and why they are so very afraid. Like what's happening with the individual protesters like Nance Drew, Louis, and Pearl Snappy right now all have legal cases pending. And, if you can give to them, please go give to them, because they are attacking. They made a mistake with Louis. I think they thought he was like a never end, because if he goes to court, he gets to tell his life story. And that is not good for them. I promise you they will drop whatever is going on with Louis, because they do not want a second gen speaking in a court of law about what they went through inside the Sea organization, inside Scientology. But the Never Ends, they're easy targets because they're just random people who are violating the law and all this other stuff and blah, 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 blah. Like Nancy with the boob gate. Like, give me a break.
Yeah,
like,
and it's sad really because they're trying to financially kind of do her in, they're trying to extend this thing out so that she suffers financially, which is the only thing they can do at this point because they've got no legs to stand on with the actual case. Like, guys,
whose boob has ever assaulted anyone?
Yes, boobs are not sentient. They are not.
As a lesbian, I can attest to that. There are no boobs out here that are just, walking around in the free world like, I'm a boob. Leave me alone. That's it.
And it's to scare protesters. It's to make protesters go, oh, I don't want to go out there and protest Scientology because that might happen to me and I can't afford that. I can't afford to be in a legal battle with this organization. And that's what they're banking on because the only thing they have is money, genuinely. So
these legal cases, and I said this a month ago, that things are only going to ramp up because Scientology is in the desperation phase right now. They are desperate to get these protests to stop. And because they're happening at pretty much every org around the world, there really isn't a way to stop it. There really isn't a way to make it. And, and everyone's focused, like on Los Angeles because that's one of the largest presence of Scientology on the planet, and then Florida, and then like Australia. Those would be the big three.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of died off in England, but they're still there. I mean, isn't it true that more people identify as a Jedi as their
Correct.
religion than Scientology? Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Well, there's a cool religion. Like, let me get in on the lightsabers and all that stuff. Like, yeah, let's figure out our metachlorian count.
Yeah, no, they're really. It was so bad that when I went down there, me and my housemate went down to just with a sign that said it's a cult and just stood outside of the building and chatted to people walking past. But they had Sea Org member like staffing the building. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't no one else in there. Actually, no, I think there was two of them in the test centre on Tottenham Court Road, in their uniforms and stuff. And I was like, don't they have separate staff? Like, why are there Sea Org members here? Like in a testing centre? And they just must not have enough people anymore.
This is how they get everybody to believe that Scientology is expanding, right? So they had the Austin org, the Chicago org, and the Paris org all open last year, right? Like, look at us, we're expanding. So half of the staff in the Austin org are Sea Org members. Same thing with Chicago. They've been doing this little personnel shuffle for years now. Every time they go to open these new ideal orgs, half of the staff is Sea Org members that they're just ripping off a post and pack, right? And then they will just yell at the orgs there, like, why aren't your stats up? Well, you just took our entire tech division and put them in Nashville. So what? Like, and it's just like, because they can get like 5 people recruited.
Yeah.
To join because they have no public, they have no eligible people for staff because the public is all tapped out, they're in debt, and that's like out qualification to be on staff. So like they've ruined their pool of people, and then all that's left are the kids. And now, because the protests have been focusing so much on kids can't consent, they're now, saying, oh, we're not recruiting children. It's too messy. It's too this, that, and the other thing. But the truth of the matter is that it's dangerous for them because they are being spotted everywhere. The cameras are on them 24/7. So they know they can't have Facebook moms celebrating their kid joining the Sea Org or joining staff somewhere anymore because we're going to find that post and we're going to do a whole video about it.
Yeah. And I do imagine it is scary for like, because I look at what's going on and I see them, using blind tech and rolling the blinds down and stuff. And I'm like, it's not to stop people looking in. It's literally to stop them looking out. It's
exactly.
And it's crazy because I'm like, some of them, like you said, young people in there, they must be scared. They must be scared of protesters. Think that some, and I know in the coming months, years, whenever, we are going to start hearing those stories because I do think that people are getting through to them. I think on some level somewhere it's happening, and I can't wait until we actually start hearing those stories and people are coming forward. And it might take some time, but I do believe it's happening.
I'm really hopeful about what's going on right now. Like doing that protest at Celebrity Center was it was I don't want to say like a religious experience, but it was a spiritual experience, right? And it just motivated me so much to be like, this act of protest is so important. It's so valuable. It is healing to go. I never did courses at the Portland org, so I don't have like a super negative association with it other than it's a Church of Scientology. But it is healing for me to be able to tell the people in that building, like, hey, there's help here for you. There's real help outside here. And if you feel like you're stuck, please, call the number, write an email, go online, talk to me later. Here's my email, whatever, because if just one person stops going and they reach out for help, it's worth it because that will start a wave. I think that people have started kind of sheltering in place because if you haven't noticed, their new tactic now is they are basically going back to the very beginning. They put an ad out like, are you lonely? Are you retired? Do you have extra time on your hands? Become a Dianetic auditor. Like they're literally starting back at like Dianetic seminars because people can't afford all this shit. But if they form all these Dianetic groups everywhere, then they're expanding again, right? With the basics, the real meat and potatoes of Scientology, just getting people to audit each other on Dianetics and the little workshops, right?
Because people are just not ready for the other stuff. They need to deal with book 1 before you can deal with the rest of it.
The real problem is we haven't gotten book 1 in on the planet. Right? Like that's probably literally what happens. So they're just like, how can we keep making money? How can we keep people coming in? How can we keep people disseminating, talking about Scientology in its purest form? We'll go back to like when Ron was just going around lecturing and doing auditing demonstrations. We're going to go back. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to rewind the clock to 1952 and just do Dianetics before everything. And just go back to like, it's just about help. It's just about your reactive mind. We're just going to only deal with that. We're not going to, and it's like, wow, they are so desperate. I mean, they're trying to get the retirees in. They're trying to get the kids in. And it is because the protests are making such a huge impact because they cannot ignore it. They can't not see it. And you're right. The blind tech is for the inside. It's not for us to not be able to see. I mean, they want public to see all of the fucking magical stuff in there. What is that? And so all they're doing is cutting that off. And then we have full reign to be like, oh, this is a cult, right? Don't go in there. Like they need to, I mean, honestly, here's a hot tip, Osa. Put a representative outside with the protesters to counter what we're saying. If what we're saying is lies and it's bad, then put your strongest, put the strongest Avenger out there to talk tech. Okay. And out tech us.
Yep.
Okay. Bring it. Let's do it. Let's have a tech off. Let's have a tech off.
That is what I love about your channel, by the way. It's like, they've got, we've got the word clearer extraordinaire on our side explaining this shit. So it's actually, you do break things down in a way that's easy to understand and entertaining, because I'm not going to lie to you. I find Scientology doctoring incredibly dull, incredibly boring, painful. I did when I was a kid. Is why I never succeeded. So I was like, this sucks. But the way you break it down, the policies and those OSA documents and things like that, it's amazing because you actually explain it in a way of what it actually is. And I love that. So I encourage anyone watching this video to please go and subscribe to Nora, because she is amazing and she will make all the gobbledygook make sense. Well, Nora, listen, we need to do another one of these because I could talk to you forever, but there's so much more I would love to talk to you about. Please, everybody, go and subscribe to the fabulous Oh No Nora. The link will be in the description below this video. And until next time, peace out.
Don't be sad.